Welcome to the Eye on You Sports Podcast, where we cover everything Kansas City sports. Today we're going to cover the 4-1 series win over Seattle this weekend with a KC Current win, Sporting Kansas City win, 2-1 series win over the Seattle Mariners for the Royals. News about Rashee Rice as well, and a USA-Japan preview for Tuesday night.
Yeah, so let's get into KC Current first here. So they just got their eighth win on the season so far against the Seattle Reign last weekend with a 5-2 win. Temwa Chawinga, a new pickup for this year, is on fire. She scored 2 goals in that game, and it's her sixth and her seventh goals of the season. She's also got multiple assists, and even with not starting every single game, she's made a major impact and is obviously one of the top players currently in the NWSL. So, like I mentioned, they have 8 wins and 4 draws, but no losses yet, which is outstanding from them because it's rare that a NWSL team can do that. And, you know, the Current lost in the NWSL championship 2 years ago. So I would assume that they have a little bit of fire now, wanting to, you know, get it back and hopefully win it all this year. And everything's looking like that could happen this year so far. The stadium's selling out. The atmosphere is insane. It's been fantastic watching them play, and the city is rallied around them. Uh, Obviously, more so than Sporting Kansas City was able to beat the Seattle Sounders 2-1 after losing or not winning, for that matter, the last 10 games in MLS. This was really monumental because last year, some fans might remember, they had a very slow start to the season and turned it around with a 2-1 result as well against Seattle, this time in Seattle. Um, this was massive for Lennis Vargas as he scored his second goal of the season so far. And although it was somewhat of a lucky goal, the setup was perfect. Peter Vermees said that he wanted Lennis Vargas to be very fast and work on getting number 21 on Seattle his second yellow card and thus a red card. And that's exactly what he did. And then it led to Lennis Vargas and Sporting Kansas City having the man advantage the rest of the game, and they capitalized on that and got that 2-1 win versus Seattle. Sporting KC plays LA Galaxy this weekend in hopes of adding another 3 points and working their way up from 12th place. Um, LA Galaxy has looked very good, even though in the past they haven't. This year is one of their better years for sure. They're in third place right now in the MLS standings, and this would be massive. If Sporting Kansas City can get 3 points, they could prove a little bit to fans and other teams in the league that they are a team to worry about. And actually, they're not just these fraud. It wasn't just a fraud win over Seattle over the weekend. All right, so those were 2 wins over Seattle for soccer, but the Royals also had a great series over the Seattle Mariners, and Josiah is going to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, tough weekend for Seattle fans that are big sports fans at least, as Kansas City was able to dominate, but also on the diamond, not just on the pitch, because the Royals were able to grab 2 of the 3 games over the Mariners, including a Friday night win that included one of the biggest comebacks in Kansas City Royals history. After Daniel Lynch came in the first inning and gave up 7 runs, the Royals were able to claw back and grab a win after a big Bobby Witt hit late in the game. And really, he's been the reason why the Royals have had so much success this year. And it's an incredible moment for Royals fans as he signed that extension in the offseason. He's going to be here for a while. I heard on the radio the other day, it's very special for Kansas City fans right now to have arguably the best NFL player in the league right now in Patrick Mahomes, but also an AL MVP contender every single year in Bobby Witt Jr. This Royals team is special, and it's going to be a special route for them if they're able to make it all the way to the playoffs. This is a big challenge this week, though, as they face the Yankees, the best team in the MLB right now record-wise, and it will be a huge moment for their pitching to see if their bullpen can stand up to that Yankee offense that is star-studded, as well as their hitting if they can continue to stay hot and continue all of these amazing comebacks that they've had. Almost across the street, we have the Kansas City Chiefs, and there's been more drama in this offseason than likely any other offseason. You have the overwhelming factor of the third straight championship that they're trying to go for, and those 3 Lombardis would be the ultimate resume would add to any resume on this Chiefs roster, including second-year receiver Rashee Rice, who's had quite a few issues in the offseason. And this last Monday, he had his first media availability during media day for the Kansas City Chiefs, and he said, "I've learned so much from that. All I can do is mature and continue to grow from that. This is a step in a better direction for me. Accidents and stuff like that happen, but all you can do is move forward and walk around being the same person. Try to be positive so that everybody can feel your love and your great energy." The Chiefs have not historically had issues in their locker room, but this offseason has been different with multiple issues. And we'll see how Patrick Mahomes, as the leader of the team, as well as Andy Reid as the head coach, is able to pull it together and see if they can try to go win a third Lombardi. And tonight, to finish off the show, the U23 team that will be heading to the Olympics for the men's national team is coming right here to Kansas City, and they're going to be competing against Japan, and Carson has the preview on that.
Yeah, so the U.S. under-23/Olympic national team will be playing tonight, June 11th, here in Kansas City at Children's Mercy Park against Japan. This is a really, really big game because it's the last game on U.S. turf prior to the Olympics, but there are some stars coming in. Paxton Aronson is one of my favorite players to watch right now. He's a little brother of Brendan Aronson, who's a massive, massive U.S. men's national team player. He'll be there tonight. Gianluca Busio, Kansas City native, who actually was at the game against Seattle, the Sporting KC game against Seattle the other day. We were able to talk to him a little bit. He's super excited to be back with just all of the fans and then also all of his former teammates. And then tons of other players. It'll be really, really, really fun to watch. They've been going around town, going to different games. Lots of the players were at the current game. Lots of the players went to the Royals game the other day as well. It's been awesome to see how the city has embraced this team, even though they probably didn't know much about them prior to them coming or hearing about the game. The game also, I might mention, is pretty cool because the referees are all Kansas people. It's just like just coming together. Everyone is coming together to watch this game. Tons of people have been talking about it. I've been seeing it all over the news. It seems like the city is just embracing this game, which is perfect for the USA going into the Olympics. So hopefully there's a good crowd tonight, and that they get the win over Japan, but then also maybe some new fans that'll be ready to watch the U.S. Olympic national team when they go to Paris coming up this summer.
Sporting Kansas City was able to get the win on Saturday. However, it's been quite the stretch and really the mountain climb for them as they were able to get there. Carson, break down this 10-game stretch in which they were not able to grab a single win.
Well, I mean, Peter Vermees, pretty much every single game after the game in the post-game press conference talked about the mentality of the team. And honestly, for a while, it was what seemed like 50% of the team. You had guys like Memo Rodriguez or Eric Tommy that seemed like they were very, very passionate, but then you weren't getting a lot out of guys like Daniel Shally or Kyrie Shelton or other guys like that. And I know just from my experience, if a team is playing and only half of them have the same mindset, they're never going to be successful. So I think what changed this weekend was the mentality of the team. Peter Vermees said it himself. He was, quote, very pleased with the mentality of the team on Saturday night. So that's huge overall. But the thing that we were talking about, over the weekend was how the team is not that much different from what it was last year at the end of the year when they were, just going through every single game, win, and made that crazy run to make the playoffs in the last minute and then did well in the playoffs themselves. The team isn't that much different. So we know as fans and as supporters of the MLS that the team has it in them. It's not like they just have a bunch of scrubs out there. They have guys that know how to win. It's just bringing them all together. And I think that if this game was a game to prove to the players, like, okay, we can win a game. We actually know how to do this. Maybe then that'll help the season change. Because, like I said, Peter Vermees said this is the actual version of who Sporting Kansas City is. He was very pleased with the performance. He was pleased with the atmosphere. The fact that fans are still showing up and 18,000 fans are still showing up for Sporting Kansas City after not winning in the last 10 games, honestly is pretty impressive for the city of Kansas City, but also shows that the trust of the fans is real. Many other teams around the area or around the league don't even have fans showing up when they're winning. So the fact that Sporting Kansas City can be losing so many games, and they still have fans shows that they have some respect from their fans. But now maybe they're proving to their fans, okay, we can do this. So it'll be very interesting to watch the next couple of weeks on what goes on next.
Yeah, it's easy to say that this might be the turning point. Some of our fellow reporters were describing it as a possible snowball effect where this first win leads to one win, a draw, a win, when, it's a snowball into something very successful. But we can't forget what just happened. I mean, 10 straight games of really not great soccer. And really it was good soccer at the beginning of the games, but the struggles at the end is what really killed Sporting Kansas City. I mean, that Portland game in which they were up 3-0 at halftime and then gave up 3 in the final in the second half, but really all back to back shows it's just a summary of what this season has been and really a struggle for the defense at the very end of games. And so the ability to finish for Sporting Kansas City has been a huge talking point for them. And so the discussions that have happened in that locker room, as well as all of the things that we've talked about as we wrote about the team and we reported for the team. I mean, one of the stats that I love to look at is after the 64th minute, they were getting outscored 4-16. And so that ability to finish, this might be the proving factor for them as they're able to get that first win in a while. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at all if they are not able to snowball this, because it's just going to be one lucky win right in the middle of a very tough schedule in which that they are just not able to capitalize. So this second game coming up against LA Galaxy, even though it's a very difficult team, is going to be a huge talking point, because if they just falter really in the second half, it's just going to be old Sporting Kansas City once again, and that's what they're trying to avoid.
To fall back on what you said about the turning point, Johnny Russell told me on Media Day that the big turning point last year was the Seattle game and Leagues Cup. He said that with Leagues Cup coming up in about a month and a half-ish, that was their big turning point. Listen to this.
Definitely the Seattle game. We had a team sort of bonding get together the week prior to that, and we spoke about a lot of things that had to be said, a lot of home truths, and it was uncomfortable at times, but no one took it personal. Everyone there was committed to the team and just being better, finding out what the problems were, how we could get back to us. And I think the pivotal moment was getting that first win in Seattle, because it's such a difficult place to go, and I think we shown there and then that we weren't giving up. We were up for the fight, and there were still low points after that, but I think for the most part that was the start of it. And then I think the way we played against Cincinnati and Chivas in the Leagues Cup, at that time the two best teams in each league, and for most of the game in Cincinnati dominated them, and then what we've done to Chivas here, I think everyone realised that we are a very good side. What happened before is gone, and we just, after that, we knew there was no margin for error. We didn't have much time left. We had to be near perfect for the rest of the year to get ourselves into the playoffs, and we done it. So Leagues Cup was probably the most pivotal point in terms of turning it around, but I think it all started the first steps were taken in that Seattle game.
Yeah, it's a great quote. I mean, we talked to Johnny after one of the games that was a really big issue with the finishing, and he said, well, last year wasn't exactly fun. And he talked about how that opening stretch was really difficult, but in that season, last year, they were able to change it, just like he said right there. And he said he'll take this year over last year. The only difference, I think the major difference between these teams, I mean, Carson talked about it, it's mainly the same people out there, is that this year they're scoring goals. But the difference is they're not playing great defense. Last year, they had a very successful defense, were not able to score goals. Now, that's something that we saw a major change in the Seattle game, as Sporting Kansas City was able to play very sound defense, making very few mistakes, with the exception being that one goal. Now, moving on to the Kansas City Chiefs side, I want to talk about the wide receiver room for just a moment. Obviously, we already talked about Rashee Rice, but Mecole Hardman just signed a contract with the Chiefs, and that adds a little bit more depth to this wide receiver room that had more than a million question marks last year with all of the drop passes and issues at that position. There's a lot of question marks again going into this season, but there's a little bit more stability as the Chiefs were able to draft Xavier Worthy, one of the fastest receivers, the fastest receiver ever to come to the combine, and he's going to be an elite deep ball threat for the Chiefs, something that Patrick Mahomes hasn't been able to work with for quite a while, really ever since he saw Tyreek Hill head to Miami. Mecole Hardman provides not only a skill set that he brings, a unique skill set, but he also brings that veteran leadership and that Chiefs mentality. And that's one of the issues that we might see with Rashee Rice. We don't know what the future holds for Rashee, as he has all of the off-field issues, even though we heard the quote that he is trying to turn that new leaf. But for him, having that mentorship from Mecole Hardman is going to be huge. There's also other mentorship going on in the field for rookie Luis Rees-Zammit, who is going to be the rugby player trying to convert to being a football player. Parker and I were at the Kansas City charity softball game that was hosted by Trey Smith and Justin Reed, previously by Marquez Valdes-Scantling. And Luis was there, and he was interacting with the fans perfectly. He was very interactive with them. He was throwing his hands in the air, yelling at them, saying, let's get going. And he was able to back it up and hit a home run. But just the way that he interacted with the fans and the way that the fans were so excited that he was there is going to be huge for him as he transitions into this Kansas City Sporting world that we're in right now that's very, very special. For him, he's likely going to be doing kick returns, punt returns, as he prepares for this new kickoff setup for the NFL in this upcoming season. And we'll see if he's able to possibly get into the backfield and complement players like Isaiah Pacheco, because he has the speed to really be a threat in that Kansas City Chiefs backfield. And really, ultimately, it just gives Patrick Mahomes one more weapon for opposing teams to worry about.
I think that Luis Rees-Zammit, honestly, he could become a future star in the NFL, because if you look at some of our best wide receivers of recent years, they all start out as kick returners. That's all I'm saying. Tyreek Hill, he makes his debut as a kick returner. Mecole Hardman, kick returner. All these guys just come out there. Andy Reid loves that speed. And then he says, hey, come join the team. I'm going to teach you a thing or two. And while you learn, you just return kicks and make a real good name for yourself. And then, so I think that this is a perfect scenario, because we honestly, since Tyreek Hill had left, or since Tyreek Hill had kind of reached that high top of his career, we haven't had that guy as our kick returner. When Tyreek Hill was around in Mecole Hardman's first year, we had that guy. But I feel like last year, we didn't have the kick returner that you're like, oh, the other teams need to be scared about this. So if Luis Rees-Zammit can be that guy, I think that's huge for the Chiefs.
Yeah, Andy Reid is one of the best coaches in the entire NFL. I would argue possibly the best. And there's one thing that head coaches cannot teach, and that's speed. So it's a great point there by Carson. One of the big things that he's going to be able to do is take that speed and take that aggressiveness that we see in rugby, because that is a very aggressive and really a scrappy sport. And we saw in that Baltimore game, especially the defensive side, Baltimore is a very scrappy team, and that's how they win a lot of games. Chiefs are not as much, but they were able to show, especially their defense in that game in the AFC Championship, how they're able to be scrappy and really, I guess, fight back against teams that are being chippy against them. Now, on this offensive side, I think Luis is going to bring that just aspect of rugby that he's been able to play with and really show, I think, like you said, an immense amount of talent that Andy Reid's going to sculpt into something amazing.
And one last thing, this might be kind of funny to say, but with his experience at rugby, you never know, he could pull out a field goal or a PAT this year out of his bag. You never know. He's been seen kicking. I think I've seen him at the Chiefs training grounds actually kicking a little bit. And then obviously in his experience in rugby, and I'm sure he played soccer growing up as well, he knows how to kick a football or rugby ball or whatever. He knows how to kick. So you never know if Butker goes down. Maybe now he's the guy, which would be pretty cool to see because it just seems like he'll be the ultimate weapon. Kind of like a Taysom Hill in a way. You know how Taysom Hill on the Saints a few years ago used to be that guy that would just jump around? Maybe Luis Rizamic could be that guy, just in a different way this year for the Chiefs.
That's a great point. If you haven't watched rugby before, go right now, go to YouTube and look up some rugby highlights. They do everything. It's like football, but even more aggressive if you can imagine that. So that is the taste of aggressiveness and special talent that we're getting from Luis Rizamic. Great point there from Carson. And on to some national news. We're in the middle of the NBA Finals right now with the Boston Celtics going up 2-0 over the Dallas Mavericks. One of the biggest issues for the Mavericks, they have that incredible backcourt duo with Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving, but Irving has really struggled shooting in his first two games. And one of the big things that we're going to be looking for on Wednesday in Game 3 as he welcomes the Dallas crowd for an NBA Finals game is, can he get his shooting going? Obviously, you have arguably the best player on the court in Luka Doncic, but Kyrie Irving has the experience of being in the NBA Finals, and right now it's really not paying off because his shooting is really not coming through. One of the things that I've been listening to and one of the things I've been observing from Kyrie Irving is he's really struggling in his ISO situations. He's putting too much pressure on himself to get that extra step, that extra move to create even more leverage. And so one of the things that we're going to need to look for Kyrie Irving is simplicity. Now, the difference between Boston and the Mavericks is Boston has more talent. There's not really an argument there. Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown alone is enough, but when you have guys like Porzingis that can come off the bench or even start for you, that's just extra talent that you have. The Celtics are absolutely loaded. But the Mavericks have two very good players, and then they also have the up-and-coming rookie Derek Lively II. The issue for the Mavericks right now, and Jason Kidd as their head coach, is deciding whether or not to have Lively or Daniel Gafford on at the same time. They're two big men that are equal level of playing, skills at least. I would tend to go with Lively and his scoring ability on the lower side, but Gafford is the most accurate shooter in the entire NBA. The issue then becomes you want to put them both out there, but the Boston Celtics have Jason Tatum, who can easily run the floor and is way more athletic than either of those guys. So putting two of those talented players out at the same time is really not great. And it's just because the Celtics really have the matchup advantage in almost every single matchup. So this Game 3 is going to be huge for the Mavericks, trying to get that first win at home. And really, if Boston's able to grab that win, that leading title streak is going to continue, and they're going to overtake the Lakers with the most NBA championships in the NBA.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a really good game to watch tomorrow. Being in Dallas will definitely change the dynamic of what we have seen thus far with both the games in Boston. I'm looking at the odds here on DraftKings right now, and Vegas is saying it's going to be very, very close with Boston being plus 110 and Dallas being minus 130 on the money line, which is pretty insane. So even though Boston has won these last two games and that first one very, very easily, or, with quite the margin, it could still be a pretty good game. You never know. 2-0 lead is not a safe lead at all, especially when you're playing such a good team like the Dallas Mavericks.
Yeah, and Kyrie Irving has been on those teams that have been able to come back from those 2-0 series wins. On the other side of the NBA, even though the NBA Finals are going on right now, we still have off-season news. And Dan Hurley, the coach for Connecticut, for the Connecticut University, UConn, who is going for their third straight title this upcoming year, had an interview with the Lakers over the weekend, and they offered him a contract that is unbelievable, giving him a 6-year, $70 million contract, something that is double his pay right now at UConn. Even though contract negotiations are going on right now for the UConn athletic department, this is a big deal for the NBA, but also college sports. But then the news came out that Dan Hurley would not be taking the position and will attempt the third straight with UConn. This is a huge deal because when do you ever see in today's sports landscape somebody choose the situation they like better over the money? It's something we rarely ever see. And really, we should give a lot of respect to Dan Hurley for making that decision. I think the Lakers right now are having a lot of question marks. The biggest question, and I can go back to either of you guys on this, is does it really matter who LeBron James' coach is?
No. He's the player
It's
that
LeBron James.
Yeah, he's the player that I'm not gonna say unstoppable because he's been stopped before, but like he is the top player. I'm not gonna get into the whole like Michael Jordan or LeBron James conversation, but he's one of the best.
I mean, here's my thing about LeBron James. If he's one of the most successful players of all time in basketball, what's a coach going to teach him? You know what I'm saying? Like LeBron knows what he's doing. I'm not sure if a different coach is just going to change things up. Now LeBron's going to be better. He's already the best, at least right now. So I'm not getting into the GOAT conversation either, but you can't. No one's going to teach Michael Jordan how to play basketball. No one's going to teach LeBron James at this point how to play basketball anymore. LeBron knows what he's doing. A coach for LeBron is just like a little. He's just filling the spot as head coach on the team. If LeBron could be the head coach of the team, I could guarantee let coach would do it.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things whenever you have a star player, the role of an NBA coach is to set that player up so that that person is successful. When you have the top player in the league, you want to, or has been in the top player, you need somebody who can come in and build a roster around those guys, around that guy, and then also set them up in game with those opportunities that will help them succeed. And right now, it's LeBron on court. He's the one that is deciding what happens each and every possession. And so, even though the finals are going on, we have this offseason news. We'll see where the Lakers go for their head coaching position. But I agree with you guys. I don't think it really matters. The thing that really surprises me, and I was surprised by the Dan Hurley news because, yes, the Lakers have a lot of talent. You've got, obviously, LeBron James, but you also got Anthony Davis and some other cast of characters that are very good. But the money surprised me that he would turn that down. It also surprised me that he would not leave the college landscape, which is a complete mess right now with NIL and everything going on. But he wants that third win, and we're going to see with him, but also the Chiefs, how difficult getting that third straight championship is going to be. All right, in summary of today, Kansas City sports right now is very special. Obviously, we showed Seattle what a real sports city looks like if we're going to trash talk a little bit. But with the soccer success as well as the baseball success, we're looking to see if the Royals can continue that as well as Sporting Kansas City and see if these snowball effects can begin and as we inch towards those playoff and postseason matchups for these Kansas City teams. For the Chiefs, we're going to see if they can go win a third one, as well as we covered NBA Finals. So lots of sports coming up. It's a special time right here in the middle of the summer, even though no football is officially going on for the NFL. So it's an exciting time, and we're having a great time here at Ion U Media, and we're hoping that you can follow us along as we continue this journey and as we cover the USA match tonight. I think it's going to be a great one.